Funding for the Stoller Report is made possible by a grant from the First American Title Insurance Company of New York. The First American Corporation is the nation's leading diversified provider of business information products and services that impact the major events of people's lives.
Hello, my name is Michael Stoller, the host of the Stoller Report, Real Estate Trends in the Tri-State Region. The topic of today's broadcast is Residential Developments in the Tri-State Region, Industry Leaders' Perspective. My guests include Yair Levy, President of YL Real Estate Development, J. Christopher Daly, President of the Shodrick Organization, Dan Gans, President and co-founder of Hoboken Brownstone, Inc., Lloyd Goldman, President of BOD Management Company, Sam Jarusa, Senior Vice President of M&T Bank, and last but definitely not least, Michael Boxer, partner at the Ramius Capital Group. Prior to the show, we were having a very rambunctious conversation regarding the active residential market in New York City, Jersey City, Hoboken, and other areas. And we were saying that prices, this is a cycle. Real estate's always a cycle, and Bob Mackel, chairman of Massey Knakkel, in his report said that most real estate cycles have lasted 7 years. And this real estate cycle is probably in its 12th year. And is the cycle going to end? People are saying that the market remains red hot. It's a pistol. Everybody wants to be here. Mr. Goldman, do you see the cycle coming to an end, or is something going to happen within 6 months?
I don't think something's going to happen within 6 months. Interest rates will affect people in terms of what they will spend on a unit and what their monthly nut is going to be to live there. But compared to previous cycles, Manhattan's changed. It's more international previously with in Europe and the Eastern Bloc countries, Soviet Union. All of those countries are now open to the United States, and wealthy individuals from those countries want to buy in New York. The euro has made it a little easier in exchange, and there's more people who have actual ownership. Previous cycles, I think Manhattan was much more rentals, and most of the new projects going up in terms of residential are ownership by individuals and families, not multifamily landlords.
You know, as I said prior to the show, the best type of show is where there's definite interaction amongst people, so everybody should bring their thoughts. Eric Hardar, who has been on the show in the past, who's president of Allied Partners, made the following comment to me. He said, young professional New Yorkers are all anxious to get in the game as they hear about the equity their friends are making in home ownership, while their real estate brokers assure them that the market is going up 20% each and every year and climbing, and you better get into the deal. The other drivers are low interest rates, as Lloyd just said, but there's a record low level of savings. The result is a culture of house-poor, debt-laden youngsters hoping that they will build up enough equity quick. In all cases, this equity is borrowed via home equity loans in order to support lifestyles based on their assumption that incomes keep increasing. How many people's income can increase to that level? How many people are investment bankers? I mean, people, Sam, who are working for you. M&T Bank is a large bank. These people didn't get a 20% increase.
Well, there's a significant difference between an investment banker and a
Sam,
banker.
what I'm saying is we have a bank. We have people who work for a bank. We're on the City University. We have a million people who watch the City University network. These people's income didn't go up by 20%, but the prices are going up there. What is this phenomena? I mean, you're a lender. You lend to Yair. You lend to Lloyd. You lend to Danny. What do you see? I mean,
well, let me give you a little anecdotal story first before I get into my predictions and
please interrupt his predictions, guys.
which they seem to want to do anyway. A client was in my office about 2 weeks ago, and he walks in and he says, 2.5 years ago, I was at a presentation that you made to one of the real estate organizations, and if I would have listened to you, I would not have bought several of these buildings that I just sold out at astronomical numbers. So before I give my prediction, I just wanted to let you know I was wrong 2.5 years ago, but I think that there are some other factors going on in this particular marketplace that kind of send up, at least for me, some red flags, and I agree with you. I'm not sure that it can just continuously keep going up. I think at some point the dynamics of the marketplace are going to have a certain amount of effect on the prices and the levels that real estate's selling at this point. Do I have an answer? Can I say 6 months? Can I say a year? I don't know. But I mean, most of the models that I think investment bankers, treasury people, and bankers are looking at are that the models are saying that rates are going to rise within the next 24 months, at least 2 to 2.5 percentage points. So I guess it depends on the deal, and it's deal specific in the sense that if your deal can make it based on numbers that are conservative and you leave yourself some room, then new development obviously may work. If you're scathing at the upper ends of these things, and there is some kind of a hiccup in the marketplace, Mike, I think I think there's some fragility there.
But where would people put their money? There's stock market soft. There's no appreciation there. Talking about young people, it's not just young people, Michael. It's empty nesters. We spoke about that during dinner. People coming back. It's safe to be in New York again. People moving their kids back, bring them in school. We did it. We left the suburbs and came back to New York. I think that continues.
Can I answer that?
Please, this is too quiet. I feel like I'm sitting at a funeral and no one's making a comment. The body's not dead. Let's go over it.
Here is the issue, because it's really dependent on the interest or the interest rate at that particular time in the market. If you have an alternative of buying something at a 3 or 4% cap on real estate, and you can take that money and invest it, let's say, in some kind of a banking instrument at that time, because rates have risen. I'm not saying right now, but I mean, there are other
alternatives investments.
Yeah,
as
exactly.
Opposed to real estate.
So if interest rates do rise, then the interest that banks are going to be paying to people who are investing money there are going to rise similarly. So I don't think you could. I don't think people would be, if you can invest in a banking instrument that you can get 4% on. Why would you go into real estate at that time at 4%?
Because you own a free piece of the upside.
Greed.
And you can own a piece of
I think what Chris said. I think it's a combination. I think it's greed.
Right.
It's a piece of the upside. And prior to the show, we also said people want to. They want to own a piece. They want to own something.
I agree with Eric Hadar. There is a little bit of a frenzy that's been created over the last several years with regard to young people wanting to get a piece of New York. They want a piece of the action. They want to throw their hat into the ring, and they want to get into the game. You read all these articles about how people are drawing lots in order to be able to bid on apartments at pre-construction prices. So there definitely is a certain aura, a frenzy that people are being drawn to. I will say, consistent with what Lloyd mentioned a few minutes ago, a lot of this frenzy is fueled by the fact that a $1 million mortgage today costs about $5,000 a month to carry. When all of a sudden rates go up a couple of hundred basis points, which we all think is likely to happen over the next couple of years, and that mortgage, that same $1 million mortgage goes from $5,000 to $8,000, and you see a corresponding increase in utility prices and cost of carry, and all of a sudden their $5,000 a month cost now becomes a $10,000 a month cost, you will see it have a very significant effect on what people think they are able to pay for these units. I do understand everybody's sort of amazement at the seemingly unending supply of kids willing to pay $2, $3, and $4 million for lofts downtown. But a rising interest rate environment, I believe, won't have a catastrophic effect on those prices, but it will certainly have a significant dampening.
What kind of interest rate do you think will be affected? Up to which point?
Up to which point?
Yeah, 6%, 7%.
I think a 200 to 300 basis point increase, if we were likely to see a 200 to 300 basis point increase, we're likely to see some softening in the market. Carrying costs are going to be, younger people trying to throw their hat into the ring, as I mentioned before, are going to be affected by their monthly carrying costs.
But the younger people are taking the money from their parents. That's what you see.
Wait a second, not everybody's.
You see a whole lot of it,
Take Eric Hadar's comment, they're taking from their credit cards, a number of people.
Some are, but the vast majority, you see them in the neighborhoods, see them in the East Village. Go out to dinner and go to an expensive restaurant and look at the people who are next to you. They're kids in their early 20s where all of us couldn't afford to do that until we were well along in our careers. There's something else fueling this.
But
There's parents who are taking money out.
And it's not only young kids.
Yes,
the market
exactly.
has changed so greatly since the 80s. Now the market, first we saw the empty nesters come. They were the first ones to decide we're coming back into the city. These people can pay the rates, and they have a desire to move into the urban areas. They don't want to live in the big houses. They see a new opportunity to be in the city.
Now, you're Hoboken Brownstone. You're in Hoboken. You're in Jersey City. You're developing in Philadelphia. And you're also involved, you were the principal person on Maxwell on the Hudson, where the old Maxwell House coffee, plant was. Jersey is different than Manhattan. Prices are different. There's a different price point.
But we're in the same basic market. There are different price points, different levels. But what fuels Manhattan fuels Jersey.
But, I was reading, and maybe it was in the newspaper or what you had told me, when Maxwell on the Hudson sales office opened, how many phone calls, how many deposits were there on the first day in the building?
In an hour and a half, there were 70 units sold. It was incredible. And
are we in a situation?
We have 6,500 people on a list for 800 units. So
it's good when Mr. Boxer is going to build on his property in Independence, and when Mr. Goldman, who's going to take the old Lorillard place in Jersey City, we can absorb another 2,000 units, you're saying, another 3,000 units.
Easily absorb that. And there's the desire to move into the urban areas, and now we have the state, and New York is doing it too, but New Jersey's pushing very hard for making transportation better, making the schools better. And there's when you see the government putting money into that, it's a very good sign. Through the 80s and 90s, we didn't see the government as involved as they are right now in trying to make sure that the cities thrive.
Dan, prior to the show, I brought up the question of the people, the working person. I was trying to give an example of the property on Water Street, which is a pre-1974 Mitchell Lama, where an individual who today is the CFO of a middle market company is paying, because of the stabilization and the controls, he's paying $850 for a 750 square foot one bedroom. While that same 750 square foot one bedroom, if it was market rate, would be renting for $2,200 or maybe more, because it's used maybe $2,500. And Lloyd brought up the discussion of the problems that we have with stabilization. Why don't you address that?
Well, that example is, look at what the landlord is paying in real estate taxes, $11, $12 a foot. Landlord's losing money on that. The tenant's not going to move out because it is such a bargain. Stabilization is artificially keeping properties, other properties, from turning over,
would
tenants
would you
moving
explain
out.
to my audience, what do you mean by rent stabilization?
Rent regulations, which guarantee renewal rates at what has been less than market rates. So someone may have an apartment that's $500, $600, $700, $800. They're going to get a 2 or 3% increase next year, and the market's going to be $2,500. And it's not only in a building like that; it's in 5-story walk-ups. It's in 40-year-old 8, 12-story elevator buildings, which over time New York has now become really the oldest housing stock in the country. We have inferior buildings in terms of certain lifestyles. You can go to garden apartments almost anywhere else in the rest of the country, be paying less than that $850, have a 1 or 2 bedroom in a complex where there's swimming pools, tennis courts, health clubs, all included in the rent, covered parking. And New York has hindered that sort of development. So now FAR cost, because there's less property available for development, has gone through the roof. It's just simple supply and demand. There is less supply, there's greater demand on less supply for new building and new construction. Hence, that FAR is at a much higher number. Hence, the ultimate sales price, because right now the flavor of the month is building condominiums for individual ownership. Those prices per foot on sales have gone through the roof.
Are you suggesting that we get rid of the stabilization program in order to incentivize landlords to build more rental product?
Well, as a landlord, it would be very beneficial to me, but I don't know that that's the best way to do it. I think there are ways to lighten the load. Clearly, I'm not sure who is inevitably hurt on a vacancy decontrol, but there are other ways.
Yeah, but let's look at the lender. You lend on these 5-story walk-ups. You lend on these stabilized.
Yeah.
How do you look at when you're lending on that type of property?
It's probably the easiest property to lend on, simply because, as Lloyd stated, the statutory increases are regulated, but you know, to an extent, it would seem you're always going to get some kind of increase over the years. But I think more important than just the statutory increases is the fact that this creates a tremendous stability in your rent roll, because most people are not going to leave a rent-controlled apartment in this city because, as Lloyd mentioned, they're basically getting an apartment at something that is well under a market rent.
Yeah, let me give you a better example of a different. I met another individual who had asked me to assist him in getting a bank loan, a bank line of credit, and I said, we need to know your income. And he said, every other year I change my income. I said, what do you mean? Because he had his own business. He said, every other year I make sure that I earn less than $175,000. Exactly. Yeah. And I said, your business, because it's a corporation, I said, how are you doing? He says, I take a loan. I said, you're going to have to pay the piper one day. But he was explaining to me he has a building, he lives in an apartment house in the Upper East Side, and he has a 3-bedroom, 3-bath apartment, and he's paying like $3,100. And he said, my landlord would love to kill me because he probably could get about $6,500 for this apartment. You know, there are different things. Now, Yair recently purchased a property on 92nd Street and on Amsterdam Avenue, and that was retail and what, 6-story?
Yeah, it's complete black front and 92, 93 Street. Yeah.
And are the apartments occupied upstairs?
Yeah, it's occupied. Rent stabilized and some decontrol.
So they rent stabilized and some decontrol. Now, it is your plan to convert these apartments to condominiums?
Yes.
Now, how many do you think of these people? Because I know that Michael and Lloyd have another development not too far away, on 97th Street to 102nd Street, where you have apartments. How, you know, for our audience, how do you convert these apartments? How do you make these people happy to buy apartments? And Chris has a similar situation. We'll talk about that in Roosevelt Island.
Normally, with the rent stabilized, you give them incentive like 10% on the selling price to buy in, and based on statistic in Upper West Side is like 35% of the people, the rent stabilized, they buy the condo.
So you hope that most of the stabilized will buy the condo?
Yeah, at least 35% and more.
It's at a deep enough discount. A lot of people recognize they're in a trap, self-imposed, that they don't want to give up a cheap rent. Therefore, they're bound to that apartment for many years. If given the opportunity to buy at a discount, they'll buy and sell and take a profit.
Or flip.
But let's also, I mean, I don't want to age myself, but I do remember in the 80s and the 90s, we had something that we had called tax shelter syndications. We had people who were buying a lot of these buildings, and they were all buying, and I'm going to convert. I'm going to convert that building. At that time, they didn't really talk condos. They were talking about cooperatives. Very few of them were made into condominiums. The market changed. They got there holding the world. I mean, some of them really got in there. The mortgage rates, they weren't able to. A condo is different than a co-op, but it's a problem. I mean,
well, there was a little bit of a different
Condo is
dynamic
different.
going on at that time as well, if you remember, and I'll age myself with you on this. But besides buying these buildings at that time at 10 times the rent roll, and saying that we were going to convert them and sell them out, some of the sponsors at that time, we won't call them owners, but the sponsors of those conversions were also starting to hawk their shares. So basically, you began to get debt upon debt, and then, as you say, when the market shifted, it created problems for those buildings where there were large blocks of unsold shares held by the sponsors. He couldn't afford to make the payments because his shares were hawked, and it affected the building. So there was a little bit of a different dynamic back then that was causing those types of buildings to really get into trouble. But furtherance of what you said, Mike, and evidence of what you said is that it not only affected that portion of the marketplace, affected a wide berth of this marketplace, and as you know, office buildings, retail, everything else followed. It's a cyclical type of business, and I think we have to realize that there are cycles. The question is how long can that cycle go out? You mentioned, this one was 12 years. But it's not only affected by the cycle, it's also affected by the prudence of the individuals who are in the marketplace. So I think that looking at this from a 1989 perspective that's not where I'm going, at least when I look at this, because I think there has been a certain amount of discipline left in the marketplace. That doesn't mean that everybody has been prudent. I think that there's some things going on here.
This is too quiet of a crowd.
like to comment.
I'm not hearing
Okay.
any interaction. I feel that the host is doing a terrible job.
Well, on Sam's point, I'd also like to point out there's been many changes in banking. He's talking about a time which was pre-RTC, and banks were lending on sellout prices at 100%. They were fueling the fire in those. They pushed the market up. There was new construction going on. Since that time, banks have a little more obligation to underwrite what they're going to lend on these. And additionally, at that time in the marketplace, banks typically were portfolio lenders. Nowadays, a lot of these loans are securitized, so they're passed on. The risk is elsewhere other than sitting in the bank, I think.
But the construction loans aren't, and you're getting the same dynamic, because construction loans are coming in here at astronomical numbers that people are putting on first mortgage, and they're topping it off with some mezzanine financing. So that same dynamic is beginning to rear its ugly head, I think.
Let me try to get off that a little bit and address the marketplace, the different types of market. A couple of months ago, Related, I don't think it's even finished, opened up the sales office in Roosevelt Island of a place called Riverwalk. And the units went out there at prices, they started at about $200 a foot, which was a great thing. You were able to get a studio for $290,000. Those studios today are about $450,000. The one bedrooms were in the low threes. They're now $550,000. The building's not even finished. Coupled with, I believe there is some land lease, there's a lease problem possibility over there. Chris, you're involved a major property in Roosevelt Island. What do you see happening in Roosevelt Island, your own property and other properties over there? And I'd like the rest of the quiet people over here.
Roosevelt Island's not that big for us all to comment.
Yeah, we're going to then get to Long Island City, which is right next
should
door.
comment.
Then we're going to go.
Missing an opportunity.
Right.
We have 800 units that we are offering right now to the tenants, and so that's an affordability.
Which is exactly what Yair is going to be doing over there.
Sure.
So you're going to be
so
offering.
There's an affordability play, where a tenant can come in and for $300 a foot buy their unit. That's unheard of, and you can be in New York in 5 minutes. You can take the tram.
The great news you just told me that there's a train.
Right. There's a train. There's an F train. It's one stop. It's a great stop.
So we can have various units in the marketplace. We can have Battery Park and Upper West Side and Tribeca units that are $1,000 a unit, and we can have things like Roosevelt Island at $300.
But you know, let's look at it this way. You just said at $300 a unit, a foot. So 1,000 square foot 2-bedroom apartment is $300,000. 1,000 square foot unit in your building.
It's $1 million.
It's $1 million. It's $1 million. 1,000 square feet in Jersey City.
That's 800,000, 700,000.
It's up to $700 a foot in Jersey City.
Yeah.
What happened to Jersey City?
Well, on the waterfront in Jersey City, you're going to pay prices like that. 1,100 square foot units, 800,000 square feet.
They want the big
very,
units.
very quick. If you're on the back streets of Hoboken or Jersey City, maybe you'll pay $450.
But wait a second, 20 years ago, 24 years ago, Sam Lefrak said he looked from Battery Park City, which at that time nobody wanted to be in, and he said, I'm going to call this Newport. And he bought all of this wasteland, and he developed a property called Newport. But you still don't have the critical mass in Jersey City.
Well, there are pockets. Jersey City's developed in pockets. You have Newport, you have the Colgate sites, and Jersey City's a very big city, so there are areas in Jersey City that will take longer
and what about
to
crime?
develop. It depends on what neighborhoods you're in Jersey City. In the Newport area, in the Colgate area, in those parts of the parts that are close to Hoboken.
I mean, Michael, you're planning to do development.
The Heights is a great area in Jersey City.
I think you have to segregate Jersey City into the waterfront and further inland.
So you're saying the waterfront
area. The waterfront is this gleaming, new, clean, emerging city like the Lefraks built out of the marshlands. Contemporary buildings with contemporary amenities, with phenomenal views into Manhattan.
With Dwayne Reed. I mean, you don't have
the
good restaurants.
Are occurring.
Sure, there are restaurants starting to emerge.
Yeah.
There are a number of restaurants in Newport.
Chili's.
There are a number of restaurants in Paulus Hook.
It's not Hoboken yet. Jersey
but
City's
Hoboken's
not
5 minutes away.
Hoboken's
you go
5
over a
minutes
bridge,
away.
you're there. You
can
take
walk.
the light
Many
rail.
of these places you can walk to.
Right,
The
you
light
take the
rail.
light rail. You're one stop. You're there.
Lloyd just hit the nail on the head. The key to everything that's going on in the Jersey waterfront, whether it be Bayonne or Gutenberg or West New York or Jersey City or Hoboken, is the light rail. Historically, all of the towns along the waterfront in Jersey and on the Palisades, they've been somewhat isolated because it was hard to get from town to town without hopping onto the New Jersey Turnpike. The light rail has solved that problem by creating a relatively quiet, energy efficient, inexpensive way to get from town to town along the waterfront. And it really is revitalizing all the towns. You're seeing a burgeoning retail presence. As Lloyd knows, there's an artistic constituency in Jersey City. Bayonne, we hear about the piers being redeveloped, and this is all being
Kushner's property, right? Kushner's
I'm sorry?
Isn't that Kushner doing something in Bayonne?
No.
I thought
There are a lot of different groups doing things in Bayonne, but the point is it's pushing.
I mean, Asbury Park.
Well,
that already had the infrastructure that you said was lacking in Jersey City, in terms of restaurants and other.
But in terms of Jersey City being, not having a nightlife, I made the argument before at dinner that Jersey City is trying to create out of nothing what has existed in Hoboken for an extended
right.
period
And
of time.
what's happening is Hoboken is spreading out. And Hoboken has been so successful that those areas near Hoboken, which Newport is, and you can walk from Newport to Hoboken very easily, are in between those areas all being picked
Danny,
up.
let's go over the water. Okay, we take the ferry or the path, and we go down to Lower Manhattan. What's happening? I mean, you're developing a property. You're converting a property. Why don't you tell us about that property you're doing
Downtown?
Downtown.
What do you like to know about?
I'd like to know.
What type of
I want to know what you're
No,
doing
I
there.
tell-
You know,
okay, I tell you
you're
what we're
converting
doing.
it. You know, what,
No,
what
I
is,
did
what's
one
the property?
conversion. I tell you, I did one conversion downtown on Fulton Street. Did very well.
Where on
And-
Fulton Street?
And between Williams and Nassau, downtown. Sold out, and then in let's say in 30 days, I sold everything out.
You sold out in 30 days. How many
Yeah.
units?
About 20 units.
And what was the average selling price?
That time was it's more than a year, about $700 a foot.
So about a year ago, $700 a foot. Now
Now
you have
we-
another one, right?
Now I'm in construction. 29 John Street is about 15 apartments going to be. Average square foot for apartment is going to be about 1,100 square foot for apartment. We predict to get like $900 a foot over there. Next month we'll be opening the cell.
And what's your opinion of these larger? I mean, the rest of the group also. Okay, you're talking about boutiques, a small number of units that you really don't have. You have. I just heard today that Witkoff is going to be converting, and I'm not sure what it's going to be. He's going to be converting 50 Hanover.
Over Cipriani?
No,
That's
5
55 wall.
55 wall.
Hanover.
That he's converting to, though. The
Yeah,
upstairs.
he's converting up there too.
I mean, can the market over there? I mean, you got Boymel Green with 15 Broad Street. You got Boymel Green with 20, 20 Pine. You have probably a couple of thousand units coming on, and everybody's condos.
That's not a lot.
No. There's a lot of rentals down there. The rentals are starting to be saturated. You can see prices on the rental side starting to slip. Rental rates are not that high. You got so much product coming up.
Right, because Liberty
to
Bonds
build on-
provided it.
Exactly.
I mean, you got 565 units being developed at 2 Gold Street by Rock Rose right now.
Right.
You have on Barclay Street, you have Litwin's property over there.
Right. And people have projected rents in the mid-40s, and they're now scaling back to the lower 40s.
Okay, speaking
seeing
about
it all
that,
over.
aren't you developing in Battery Park City a site?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're going to be facing Jersey City or Hoboken?
We're
Jersey City,
It's
you're
the
right on.
Maxwell, the old Maxwell site.
Well, that's Hoboken.
That's
but-
Hoboken.
No,
That's
sorry,
his
it's
site.
not
We're
Maxwell.
opposite Chelsea Piers.
Where
You're
was
looking
the
at Colgate.
Colgate. I was trying to remember which site it was.
And this is this is the last site in Battery Park
This is the
City.
last waterfront site.
Last
there are 2
waterfront.
other sites that are interior.
And you're going to be building what over there?
Condominiums, 280 family-sized condominiums.
2 or 3 bedrooms?
And larger. Average size, 1,500 square feet.
Boxer, and you want to move to Scarsdale? I mean, the family could be over there.
I can't afford what he's looking to get over in Battery Park City.
What are you looking for?
We'll talk. We'll
Square
get
foot?
Sam to make a loan, and we'll
So
see what we can
my
do.
question is, no, I think it's a very good point that I just brought up. He's going to charge $1,000 for a condominium in Battery Park City. Fine.
I heard $850 before.
No,
$850.
$850 to start.
$850 for you.
$850 to start.
Well, it's going up every.
Yeah,
Well, one of the things,
no, but I want to get, because Mr. Boxer is planning to move to Scarsdale. Isn't it less expensive to live in the suburbs from what I'm just hearing?
to some degree, yes, but one of the things you're missing, you said 565 units. You said another building of 200 units, I believe. These aren't large numbers in the scale of what Manhattan is. And now you look at the financial institutions that are down there, the law firms, all the big partnerships that years ago became LLCs, LLPs, and these, you hear about people getting $1 million bonuses, $5 million bonuses. That
No one in this room is doing that.
but in the
Not too many of my listeners.
no, but in the financial industries where they're bringing in people, the only way they can take money usually out of their firms, they usually get 50% distributed, the other 50% stays in as partners' capital. The only way they can access the other 50% is generally for health care and housing and for essentials. So they are also a part of the buyer that in order to access some of their partner's capital, they have to buy. And the numbers of units you're talking about going on aren't really that large compared to what's going on in Jersey City, Hoboken.
I have a unique buyer. I have someone who moved to Battery Park in the 1980s when Lefrak put the first buildings up and stayed and bounced around into one bedrooms and shoehorned themselves into 2 bedrooms with their children, and they have nowhere to go. And they like Battery Park. They like being on the west side of West Street. They like the environment, and they have no place. There's no condominium in the north neighborhood where we are, and that's what we're appealing to. We're appealing to people who want to stay in New York, are sending their kids perhaps even to the public schools that are very good in Battery Park, 2 grammar schools that are very well rated. They don't want to move to Scarsdale.
And you're going to be very lucky. Hopefully, right near you, there's going to be a new Whole Foods.
It is.
Right, the Whole Foods.
We're doing the deal with Minskoff on the other side. We're doing the rental piece. He's
going to put a...
We'll announce it very soon.
Great.
And the Whole Foods will help drive that whole community where...
Right, because that was one of the things lacking downtown.
Awful.
Which is,
but now with Fresh Direct, it doesn't matter. But
that's exactly right.
With
Fresh Direct, they don't go to Jersey.
Yeah, but it was an issue. Because in the World Trade Center studies, people were commenting in the lower Manhattan development that they needed a grocery store near Battery Park City, and that it was a concept that a large grocery store should be put in one of the World Trade Center office buildings, which would be rather unusual.
I didn't want to say, because this is a residential show, but Lloyd is one of the owners of the World Trade Center, but that's a different show when we do Lower Manhattan again. Let's try to go not to Lower Manhattan. Let's try to focus we spoke prior to the show with the Ayer. We said this hot market in the Lower East Side, and that's my son's friend told me a story once. His father was he said, "Dad, drop me off on Ludlow Street," and the father said, we fought and your grandparents fought to get out of this neighborhood, and you want to go here? What are you doing at the Lower East Side? And
well, that's a neighborhood. That's a kid's neighborhood. We have a site, and I refer to it as the slacker site. These are young kids who like being in that environment with trendy restaurants. It's kind of still a little bit gritty. Let's face it. In New York, there aren't many gritty neighborhoods anymore. There aren't any edgy neighborhoods. Everything's been cleaned
Alphabet
up.
City?
It's kind of you walk around Tompkins Square Park and tell me what you think.
Avenue D?
Avenue D is pushing it, right? Avenue D. There's a project on Avenue D. But go down in that area, and for a kid who likes the grittiness,
it's nice. NYU, so of course it's a natural progression of young people.
But people buy a condo over there on the Lower East Side. What type of people you think they buy a condo?
He's right.
That's the question.
The Lower East Side is one of the few neighborhoods left in New York that has that edginess to it. The younger people are being drawn to those neighborhoods, and if you look,
that's where you normally are at night.
If you look what's being built in the neighborhood, and it's much smaller units that may be trading at high numbers on a per square foot basis, but relatively low numbers in terms of aggregate dollars, merely because the units that they're buying are that much smaller.
Last
or renting
in October they opened up. It was originally supposed to be called the Surface Hotel. Then it was called the Hotel. It's called the Hotel on Rivington Street. And when I did my article for the Sun on hotels, I went down to see it. It's this 20-story glass structure across the street from Economy Candy, across the street from a former synagogue, and about 2 blocks away from Tiny Tim's Subway shop. And I don't know who's there, but 2 blocks away from that, the Pomerances are building a mixed-use combination program with rental apartments, a hotel, retail, and condos. I mean, it's a very hot neighborhood.
The question, who's buying a condo right on the Lower East Side?
They're paying $1 million. I mean, Chris, they still
there's a price point for the Lower East Side. It's not $1 million. It's a $300,000 to $400,000 to $500,000 to $600,000 sellout.
It's $800 on the Lower East Side now.
Yeah. Okay.
So who's buying it? $800 a foot. Not the young kid.
Not the young kids. The more and more people, demographics, the National Association of Realtors, recently did a study, and the number one reason why people want to move is to get closer to work, and that screams loud for urbanization. I'm not sure that living in Scarsdale is cheaper than living close to work when you put in your value of your hours and time and commuting. And more people are seeing that. More people have this desire to live in the urban areas. And the flight of the urban areas of the 50s and 60s and when the 70s, it was the low point of urban areas in this country, that has stopped. And we are going to continue to see the reurbanization in this country. And I think the prices will drop in other areas outside of the urban areas. And I also think that building larger units is also very smart. What we saw in the 80s was smaller units had that 25% drop because there were so many. Everybody wanted to build.
So Dan, you're saying more people, there are larger units being built.
Larger units being built, families, empty nesters. These people want larger units. There's not enough larger units in this area because still so much is being built for small, but less. Many of us are now building larger units to accommodate these people that want the empty nesters and the families that want to stay. It's not only the young kids in the 70s in the 80s who were the forerunners of the new urban lifestyle.
You know, over the last 18 months, a lot of properties, apartment houses, Yair is going to be closing on the Sheffield, which is 57th Street, which is a dynamic location. Lloyd, with partners, closed on 1200 Fifth Avenue, right near Mount Sinai. These are a lot of conversions over there, but these are not going to be cheap. I mean, who's the profile who's going to be on 1200 Fifth Avenue?
A family with 1-2 kids who is going to want a 3-4 bedroom. That is a professional who works in New York. And one of the things we liked about it was it's a gorgeous building that was built by the right architect, and it's a Fifth Avenue property with great views of the park. And it's built. Basically we're doing the bathrooms and the kitchens and doing some.
So there was not really a gut rehab that you have to do. It's an easy situation. But relating to that,
which means you're in the market
pretty
quickly.
You're in the market pretty quickly. My big question is, and we said this prior to the show, land prices today are crazy. Land prices in Manhattan are reaching $400 a developable foot. And if it costs you $400 to buy the land, and steel prices are up, construction prices are up, construction is up, Sam, another $300 a foot.
Interest rates are up.
No, it's too high, Mike.
Okay,
you build a nice condo right now, $260, $270, right? Good finishes, all done.
So fine. So let's.
This is out cost. Then you have the soft cost.
Yeah. So wait. So we have $400 and we have $300, and then we have certain other costs. So we're at, if you're at $400 and $300 a foot, and then there's something called a loss factor, because when you're building an apartment, you're going to lose 15%. So the 400 really goes up to maybe 480. You know, something. You're at $800, $900 a foot. I mean, now I'm talking about a little prohibitive.
No room for error.
No room for error.
Yeah.
At those
and what's happening from what I see, and I pick up the New York Times, I walk around Manhattan, there's a lot of people building. I mean, there's a first co-op condo on 42nd Street being built. It's opening. Gary Barnett, Intel's right next to the post office, near the Port Authority.
And you'll note that if you take a look at it, they're all building to the same target audience. So the question becomes, how much of that stuff can be absorbed?
Who's the audience?
Those people that can afford that kind of money per square foot.
Wait, you know what? We said battery. Let's look at this. 40. Battery Park City, the water. Hoboken, the water, or the restaurants. 42nd Street. Rentals on 8th Avenue have done very well, but there haven't been too many condo conversions.
It all speaks to the testament of pent-up demand in New York. You can basically build anywhere in New York today, and so long as you're building a decent product you're going to be able to sell it, because you mentioned earlier in the show that we are now in the 12th year of a rising real estate cycle, rising real estate market cycle.
You don't have to be polite. You can
This is unprecedented because it comes on the back, really, of 10 years of unprecedented economic growth and prosperity in this country. Wall Street has created a whole new generation, minted a whole new generation of wealthy people coming out of this industry. The vitality and the viability of the city, as opposed to the suburbs, are drawing, as you mentioned, the empty nesters back into the city. If you added up all the number of new units that are coming onto the market,
we can absorb it.
I'm sorry?
I don't know, because it's...
I think everybody would be impressed by
The
sort of
absorption.
how little the number of
Historically-
units coming onto the market is versus the number of people looking for a place to
because
live.
historically it seems like there weren't a lot of conversions. And now you start looking at the high-end stuff. You talk about the plaza being converted to condos. You talk about the toy building. You talk about the Empire Hotel. You talk about what we're doing at 1200. You talk about the buildings you're doing. You start adding up. There seems to be a lot more coming on the market in the next 2 years, and it seems to be significantly larger numbers than what has been converted over the past few years. And I don't know, at the very high end, whether all of that gets absorbed at the prices that are needed or projected.
You know, there's a comment that's... yes, Sam?
Well said.
You know, someone said, someone called me up and said, I have a site, he was a mortgage broker, and he was asking me about a lender, if I could help him. And he said the site is like off 17th Street and 7th Avenue. And I had asked him, had you figured in the tax abatements or the development rights? And he said, no, we didn't figure that out. And what the comment that I'm trying to allude at is that there are people who, there are developers, as opposed to even buyers, you know, somebody buying a unit, who want to get into this world. There are people today who say, I'm going to be a developer. You know, they're saying, I want to buy that property, and I'm going to buy that land, and, you know, I'm going to do it because Yair was smart that he did over there. I can be that. So I could leave the business, and I'm going to go into that. And there are lenders, Sam, not you, who are saying, you know what, I'll give you the money without a guarantee to complete. I mean, it's a little scary. I mean, this is part of it. Relating to what Lloyd brought up, and it's not, we're not on the stadium or anything, and I don't want to get to that subject. The biggest problem that we have with the convention center or stadium or anything is the hotel rooms. And a number of months ago, I wrote in my Sun column that we lost 3,000 rooms over the last 18 months. Today, I had stated it was going to happen, but today I believe the Sutton Hotel on 55th Street and First Avenue was sold. That's another one. And there are going to be more hotels. We're in a city that, you know, conversions are what you just said. These people are only going to convert them hotels like the other ones. But if the city wants to be vibrant enough to get the Olympics or something like that, and there's limited land, where are we going to build hotels?
Long Island City.
Long Island City.
West Side.
West Side.
West Side.
West Side, new rezoning.
West Side.
That'll probably be a new hotel district.
Let's get to Williamsburg. What's
From the west side to Williamsburg.
It's a
Staying in
W.
the
Mike,
W's.
Mike's
No, we're going to get
We have a W coming to Hoboken. by the way.
No. The reason that the West Side, the West Side is a little hot potato on that. I'd like to get to Williamsburg because Williamsburg also has great views. What's everybody's opinion of Williams? I mean, I've never seen such a quiet crowd on my show.
Well, the Williamsburg, we're not familiar with Williamsburg. Let's talk about the west side, the midtown west side. not
Okay, let's
uptown
talk
west
about
side. That's what he mean.
So let's talk about it.
You
Let's
have
talk-
plenty land there, it's still a reasonable price, so it makes sense to build.
Where's the reasonable price?
On the west side,
Yeah.
you're talking between the 30s and the 40s, you can find.
Let's talk reasonable price. 42nd Street, there was a site next to the Chinese embassy. That entire major site. The development sites over there were sold, they were cheaper than $400. They've been sold for $225. They're still going to cost $700 all in.
I know people bought the last few months, they pay $150 for
$150?
It's commercial.
Yeah, the prices
Talk about
have really
commercial.
gone wild on FAR in the last year and a half. Before that, they were much more reasonable, and the products you see coming on the market today are the ones that were started 2 years ago. The product that's trading at these prices for development won't be online for 2 years unless it's a hotel that you can convert within a year to 18 months, but still.
Unless you're the plaza.
Yeah.
Which will take
You're
a
not
little
going to touch
longer.
that one, are you?
We're talking about commercial land, you can still buy cheap. When you cannot build residential, you can buy cheap and you can build hotel. That's what
rezone.
make.
Right. I ran into a gentleman who has built five hotels. Okay, and the hotels are different types. They're Hampton Inns. One is on 31st Street. One is on 24th Street. Because you have the commercial zoning, and there's a need. The city has a need for this type of hotel. They make a need, but our bigger problem, I think, in the city, and also in Jersey City, is this insatiable appetite for people wanting to move back to the city, and there's not enough property. I mean, you have a rental in Jersey City. What type of people are renting in your property in Jersey City?
Most of the people that rent in our building, and we're at the Colgate site. We have 648 units. They are all, for the most part, they work in Manhattan. They like the lower cost alternative to renting in Manhattan, and typically our rents are 20 to 30% below comparable product in Manhattan. We don't get a lot of families, maybe because they're down where we are. There's not a lot of opportunities for kids to engage in extracurricular activities, but
There's no school.
That's all
the
changing.
schools aren't there. You don't have.
there are no
You don't have the
schools down
critical
there.
mass on the educational thing.
But also talk about the amenities. I mean, Jersey City, when I've done my market studies on Jersey City, Hoboken, the new buildings going up have incredible amenities for the tenants.
Right. We have a pool at our building. We have an unbelievable gym. We have a valet service. We have a restaurant in the building. We have a flower shop. We are right on the light rail stop, which we spoke about before. And if you take the ferry, we are literally 8 minutes to downtown Manhattan.
Other buildings I've seen have amenities such as video rooms for tenants to use, large party rooms. They have wine cellars. Some have squash courts. I mean,
And what happens is when people get frustrated with Manhattan and feel the prices are getting too high in Manhattan,
to Hoboken.
and they come to Hoboken and Jersey City.
That's why I got
And
the
they're
guys from
practically
Hoboken and
paying,
Jersey City.
You know, in condo costs, comparably, you're paying almost 50% still, and
Yeah.
Jersey has been like that.
so when you say 700, they're getting a lot more in terms
They're
of
getting
what
more
getting.
for their buck.
They're getting free health club memberships. You start dwindling that
No.
off the cost of 700
I-
as you get to $1,000, $2,000 in Manhattan. Some of these alternatives look attractive, and it's why many of us are developing there.
The two of you own property in Long Island City. I don't want to talk about commercial because we're getting close to the end of the show. Residential in Long Island City.
Not yet.
Why not?
Infrastructure, community, lack of amenities for the neighborhood.
Too
We
gritty.
see a lot of we see a redistricting and a rezoning going on
Rezoning's
along
finished.
the waterfront certainly in Williamsburg and in Greenpoint, and I believe that's going to push further north eventually into Long Island City, but it's still got a little ways to go in terms of the infrastructure
Sam?
that families in a neighborhood will need.
There's great potential there, and I think.
But it's not ready today?
I don't think it's ready
No.
today. I agree exactly with what Mike said. But
Yeah.
you know what? From a standpoint of New York City is, you know, everybody likes to say the greatest city in the world. See, the United States has become the educational center of the world, and New York, incidentally, demographically, last year was the third largest or fastest growing urban center in the United States. So there's still a lot of people coming over here, and there's still a lot of room for housing and absorption. It's just that you know, we need to be prudent about where we're going and what and what kind of and what type and what level of housing we're creating.
Okay. It's hard to believe, but we've finished our time for the program. I think we've covered a lot of ground. I'm a little unhappy you guys didn't fight with each other, but you know,
We're going to fight later.
Perhaps next month when we talk about, I think we're going to do Long Island and something. We're going to have one developer who's building $8 million homes in Greenwich. But I really would like to thank all my guests this evening. Yair Levy, President of YL Real Estate Development, Chris Daly, President of the Sheldrick Organization, Dan Gans, who came over from Hoboken, President of Hoboken Brownstone, Lloyd Goldman, who has property all over, loves Long Island City as a commercial, but building in Jersey City, President of BLDG Management, our lender, our friend Sam Jerusa of M&T Bank, and last but not least, Michael Boxer, developer, lender, friend and confidant of Ramius Capital Group. See you next month, and thank you very much.
Funding for the Stoller Report is made possible by a grant from the First American Title Insurance Company of New York. The First American Corporation is the nation's leading diversified provider of business information products and services that impact the major events of people's lives.